In Ephesians 6, the Apostle Paul gives us a warning about impending danger. And he says that we are to put on the whole armor of God. We are a nation today that is observing spiritual wickedness in the high places. As we watch not only the footprints of our forefathers being washed away, but their very memory as well.
It's an organization run on secrecy, fear, and intimidation. A white supremacist group founded after the American Civil War to oppose rights for African Americans. Throughout its notorious history, the Ku Klux Klan has used murder, lynching, arson, and rape to terrorize its enemies, mainly blacks, and spread its message.
We did create this country. We did build this land. Our forefathers built it. We can't let these niggers, muds, spicks, faggots destroy it, take it from us.
At its peak in the 1920s, the group had as many as 4 million members across the United States. Today, membership has plummeted, and the Klan is a disparate and fractured group. America's South has embraced diversity and tolerance. But not everyone agrees with this new way of doing things. Hundreds of Klan chapters are still active across the South. They hold little political or social influence, but their symbols are as powerful as ever. The white robes and hooded cloaks, the burning crosses. Their conviction that elites have robbed white Europeans of their place in society. And their commitment to racial segregation.
Ever since I was born, I was born racist. I've always hated it. I see them walking down the street, just hate it.
Today, the Klan can be found online. They organize over the internet. And some groups feel the time is right to enter politics.
The time is now. A revolution is coming in the United States of America.
The Ku Klux Klan are mysterious, elusive, and very difficult to reach. Almost impossible to talk to even if you're their preferred brand of human, Caucasian. I'm Imran Garda, South African of Indian descent. This is my personal journey through the flyover states in the heart of America, into the small pockets of this vast superpower, in towns you might never have heard of before, to meet the Klan. Harrison, Arkansas, population 13,000. At first glance, this could be any town in America's South. But when you look a little closer, signs of this town's inner turmoil are hard to miss. Harrison is the headquarters of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. They're a group who want to bring the Klan into the 21st century. Instead of preaching race hatred, they talk of non-violence, being pro-white and pro-Christian. From their compound in Harrison, they hold services and even broadcast online TV shows.
Have you heard of the show called 16? It has race mixing, it has propaganda. And the main characters, one of them's black, one of them's Mexican, and some of them are white. And pretty much, tune in next week. Bye!
they have a tendency to drum up emotion from a lot of people that really aren't involved with them, people that don't have the education, that haven't traveled. They've lived in an area all their lives, never gone anywhere other than to the grocery store and home, worked in the same factory all their lives, and they don't see what's going on in the world.
Hello, Knights Party, can I help you?
Thomas Robb is in charge of the Knights of the KKK. He prefers a business suit to the white robes. He no longer goes by the title Grand Wizard. Now he's the National Director. And to help raise funds for the cause, he has a healthy sideline in Klan merchandise. I'd been trying to arrange a meeting with Rob for more than 2 years, initially through an intermediary and later his daughter Rachel. Rob welcomed me to his Klan headquarters with the old South African flag. The flag of Apartheid. The system of racial segregation that gripped South Africa for 50 years. The system I grew up under. I noticed when I came in, you had an old South African flag on the table.
Sure did. We got it out special for you.
Tell me why.
What? Because we figured you at that point we thought this was a report going to South Africa,
Right.
and so we thought, well, okay, these guys from South Africa, let's bring out a South African flag and display it, so they make them feel at home in the old days.
Right. I was 12 years old when South Africa stopped using that flag. So it's the old flag, right? Now, what it represents to me was far fewer rights than I had after that, as for my family and so on.
But what about today? I mean, today, South Africa is a population of about 54 million people. There's 80% considered black, 8% are considered colored, and then 2.5% that are Asian. You know, and what about 8% white?
Between 8 and 10%.
So is there a white voice that can be heard in South Africa today?
They are, yes. Political
Really?
parties, yeah. I mean, there's Freedom Front, which is a political party, sure.
Okay,
The Democratic Alliance is
basically
pretty
those are
white
cultural
dominated.
clubs. Do they have any political voice in the national politics?
White people have a political voice, yes.
I mean, who developed South Africa?
A lot of the work was based on slave labor.
Of course, the blacks weren't in South Africa at that time.
They were, yes.
They were further north.
They were in South Africa, yes. I mean, in the
Not in
Cape,
South Africa. They were further north.
the Cape Colony had. I mean, the reason we have
They might have brought in some slaves,
Sure.
but the Zulus were further north.
the Zulus on the east coast.
Well, but they were
Right.
further north than South Africa. You didn't have any blacks living in South Africa at that time.
Oh, you did. I mean, the reason. I mean, I don't want to argue with you, right?
I mean, I've talked to many people from South Africa. They tell me that's not true.
Rob frames his cause as a noble one. He's saving an indigenous people under threat and undermined by globalization, immigration, and an enemy in the White House.
We don't hate people that are not white. We understand that everybody of every background has a right to have their families and have their loved ones and pursue an occupation and a job and have a happy life. I understand that. I have no problem with that. I get that. What I find is that is not being directed towards us. When we talk about having pride in our people and pride in our heritage, pride in our culture, and want to pass our heritage on to our children and pass on to future generations, we're called haters and bigots for it. If we are Caucasian, dominate society, then why can't we have those groups? Why can't we have a white journal association? If we're so dominated by a white culture, then how come white people can't associate among their own kind?
Thomas Robb's arguments are designed to strike a chord with people who might never dream of putting on a Klan robe, but still feel that elites have taken something from them. And multiculturalism is to blame. This is what I'm trying to understand, because you're a passionate, intelligent man with a strong following, and there's clearly a feeling going on in the nation now where a lot of people feel like you do. They might not subscribe to the beliefs exactly, but there's a restlessness amongst white Americans.
We've been saying for a long time, listen, the white people in the country as a whole would follow our ideas if we had the power and the finances and the ability to get it into their heads, to broadcast into the hearts. If they could hear what we have to say. And Donald Trump has, in a sense, validated what we've been saying. For the most part, he's saying the very same thing we've been saying. And he's got a tremendous support, but because he's got the money that he was able to force himself into the attention of the American people.
After we spoke, Rob's daughter, Rachel, showed me around the compound. Looking at the photos of how things were then and how they are now, I was struck by how endlessly adaptable the Klan has been over its 150-year history. 6 former Confederate officers founded the Klan in 1866. Intent on terrorizing former slaves, their movement grew and soon began to develop elaborate codes and titles, all reporting to a grand wizard. Within 3 years, the Klan was all but dead, torn apart by infighting. But in 1915, the Klan was revived by a powerful piece of cinema. The film, The Birth of a Nation, chronicled the Reconstruction era from the KKK's perspective. It reinvigorated the movement and inspired a generation of Klansmen. By the 1920s, millions of Americans counted themselves as members. Bound by an almost mystical code, they took to threatening and persecuting Jews, Catholics, and, most ferociously, blacks. The Klan's fortunes ebbed and flowed over the decades, weakening for a while before surging again during the civil rights movement in the 1960s that they could not stop. Slowly weakening again before its pulse was recently reinvigorated. Today, there are more than 100 KKK-affiliated websites hosted in the United States, including chat rooms where Klansmen can engage with like-minded white supremacists. If you spend long enough in these chat rooms, you can come across some unusual invitations. We reached out to these guys in some of the darker parts of the internet. They're called the Nordic Order Knights. They have a Caucasians-only event, which we think will involve cross-burning. And we're meeting up with them once we get there to hopefully give us some access to observing their very traditional Klan celebration. We were in uncharted territory now. We didn't know who these guys were, we didn't have their phone number, and we had no idea how they'd react when they met us. The only information we did have was a state, the name of a town, a 6-hour drive away from Harrison, and a flyer. They didn't yet know my name and ethnicity, and their gathering was billed as strictly for Caucasians. So I needed an alias. In a flash of inspiration, Imran Garda from South Africa was no more, and Ron Garda, a Sicilian Catholic, was born. Driving through the depths of the deep south, you can see just how far away this place is from the politicians in Washington. Down here, some people fly a different flag. It's easy to see when you're in Dawson Springs, Kentucky, that this place is not thriving. It's not cosmopolitan. It is a place where a young man might want something a bit more from life, something to awaken his pride and inject some purpose. When the Klan turned up, they made us sign a contract promising to blur their faces. Then they told us to follow them. Okay, we're following this guy in his red Mini KK Cooper to the compound where they're gonna do all the KKK stuff. God, this is so bizarre. It's so bizarre. So bizarre. I followed them to a compound in the middle of a forest near town. The scene that greeted me was surreal. Southern barbecue, but with a few unusual extras. I was introduced to the Grand Dragon of the Nordic Order Knights.
I feel that immigrants have destroyed this country. I feel that the blacks have been so entitled to the fact of they can go out and kill cops and get away with it. We have to hold them in this divine image of we've betrayed them and wronged them. Slave ownership, they were sold by their own people. If they don't like it, they can go back to Africa. I mean, because realistically, white Europeans settled this country. Okay, we fought, we died, we went through a lot of for this country. These immigrants walk in with their hands out. They don't want to live the American dream. They just want to take and rob from what we've created. Okay, so how do we feel about blacks? How do we feel about Mexican immigrants? I don't like them. That's for me. Am I sitting here teaching my guys to go out in the streets to hurt them? No. But you better bet your ass, if they come out here looking to hurt one of us, we're the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan of the 30s, we would have already been out on the streets taking action.
What sort of action?
You think your mind whatever you want to think of that action. We might pass out flowers and give kisses, but on the other hand, imagine what the mind can think.
Charismatic and passionate, the Grand Dragon clearly exerted a powerful influence on his followers. He told me he could have been a doctor or a lawyer, but he chose the robes of the Klan.
I know why I hate him. I know why he hates him, and I know why everyone out here hates him or dislikes them, whatever their choice of politically correct words is. It's because of what they're stealing from us. This is our country, all right? When they start coming into urban areas and country areas and demanding their way of life, they better watch out, because the Ku Klux Klan isn't going to sleep forever.
This clan couldn't be more different from Thomas Robb's polished and intellectual message. These guys were angry, and their anger was not confined to the clan's traditional targets.
This class of people, the blacks, led by their head baboon, President Obama, is just riots. That's all they are. They are always rioting, and they're always getting away with it. And at some point, it has to stop. Okay? Who could stop it? Well, I believe the federal government should stop it. It's their responsibility.
So you see blacks rioting, Muslims, terrorism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jews, how?
You know, as far as being anti-Semitic, Jews can't join the Klan. They're not allowed in the Klan. Their lust is for gold. Do I like them? Hell no. Do I want a Jew out here? No, absolutely not. But to be honest with me, the niggers are the bottom feeders. They're the scum of the earth. And I'm going to go back to what Reverend Jeff Berry said many years ago. I don't need a reason to hate them. I hate them because they exist.
Hispanics?
Hispanics, they come to this country, they suck the life out of it. They want to fly their Mexican flags around this country on their little antennas. They want to play their mariachi, have all their customs. But they don't want to be Americanized, but they want to live here.
Right.
They want to turn this into Mexico. They want to turn this into a third world country.
Donald Trump says he wants to build a wall. You think that'll help?
The guy's got a lot of big ideas. Would he be better than Hillary? Hillary's a criminal.
I asked you about blacks, I asked you about Hispanics, Jews, Muslims. What about liberal whites?
Liberal whites. People with no backbones. That's what I call them. You know, these people are minimal. They're sheeple. They march to the beat of whatever drum sounds the best to them, what everyone's agreeing. They're scared of being called racist. To me, they're minimal men. They should all be castrated. You know, they shouldn't be allowed to have children, bottom line. I mean, I know it sounds extreme, but realistically, they have no backbone. They have no soul. So, liberal whites, to me, they're no better than a nigger.
As night fell, the Klansmen prepared for their ceremony. A ceremony I never thought I would ever witness.
Klansmen, do you accept the light?
Yes, your lordship.
Klanswoman, do you accept the light of Jesus Christ? Klansman, do you accept the light of Jesus Christ?
Yes, I do.
Good. It's good to hear. Klansman, do you accept the light of Jesus Christ? Good. Klansman, left face.
The ceremony swung between intense fervor and amateur comedy.
This way. Turn around.
Left face is this way. Your other left.
Go ahead. Good job. Klansmen, halt. Face the cross. This time so everyone can hear it. For God!
For God!
For race!
For race!
For nation!
Nation!
Klansmen, approach the cross. Do not turn your back on the cross. Don't burn the Klansmen in front of you. Music, maestro. Klansmen, behold the fiery cross. All the troubled history failed to quench its hollow flames. It shall light from sea to sea. Let me say the cross is an inspiration, a sign of the Christian religion, a symbol of faith, hope, and love. We do not burn, but light the cross to signify that Christ is the light of the world and that his light, it destroys darkness. We did create this country. We did build this land. Our forefathers built it. We can't let these niggers, mutts, spicks, faggots destroy it, take it from us. So what do we put our trust in? In our elected officials? Everything's about to collapse around us this time. It's 2016. It's gonna fall sometime. When it falls, the Ku Klux Klan will still be here. Yes, we will. White power! White power! All right, Klansmen, get your pictures. Amen.
Amen, brother.
I don't really have much to say. I don't really know what to say, except that I never thought I would experience, observe, witness something like this in the year 2016 in the United States of America. With guns at their waists and the alcohol flowing and increasing restrictions on what we were allowed to film relate to us with much irritation, it was probably time to get out. It was time for the final stop on my journey, Houston, Texas, the economic powerhouse of America's South. It's a prosperous place where multiculturalism is celebrated, and the city's diversity celebrated in the monuments that dot the landscape. But even here, white supremacists have a foothold. They have the right to free speech and the right to bear arms, and in this protest, they weren't afraid to exercise either of them. In 2016, the delicate issue of race relations has often descended into violence. Texas has become a flashpoint state. In Dallas, a sniper killed 5 policemen. A revenge attack for the use of force by white police officers. And in Houston, gun activists brought chaos to a Donald Trump rally with 2 people arrested. I've come here to find out what impact the rise of the Klan and America's extreme right could have on America's presidential election in November. Throughout my journey, every Klan member I met was vocal in their support of Donald Trump. But why?
His candidacy has given people far more permission than they had before. And we might think that's a bad thing. People should have good manners. Well, not necessarily. Not if their manners mask an otherwise hateful or vengeful or, God forbid, dangerous and violent behavior. What Trump has done is given people permission to express opinions and attitudes and concerns that have been there. These are not young children who are growing up aping parents. These are grown men and women, and many of them well beyond adulthood. And they have pent-up frustrations and anger, and most importantly, they have felt left out.
In the world's most powerful country, and one of the most dynamic, diverse democracies on the planet, the Ku Klux Klan today is a marginal voice. But emboldened by an increasingly toxic political climate, are they becoming less marginal before our eyes? Traveling through Arkansas and Kentucky, I sensed the grumblings of a self-pitying majority. In the small towns where these groups intent on saving the white race operate, there were almost no black people. There are few Latinos or Muslims or Jews. Where is this threatening enemy they talk of? Some of them, like Thomas Robb and his daughter, were warm and cordial to me, a brown man. Others were edgy, suspicious, and a little scary. But all of them told me a white genocide is happening. A genocide not of mass killings, but of gradual extinction through mass immigration and assimilation.
We are losing our First Amendment rights, and quite honestly, we're losing our mind.
They watch the news and see a world in equal parts cosmopolitan, immoral, and hostile. If a European is killed by a refugee, if a black person is making millions, or if a study shows that Caucasians will become a minority in America, these fragments are stitched together as proof of the white genocide. A genocide that goes unreported on because the media, like the politics and the economics, are rigged against them. The KKK has waited quietly for a long time. Now they seem to be actively preparing for a great reckoning.